Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bones Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Hope your work week is off to a great start. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos and fired up to be hanging out with you over the next 2 hours. As is generally the case on a Monday, there's just a lot to talk about. We're going to crown a national champion in college basketball tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the Final Four and tonight's ball game. LSU basketball is cleaning up in the transfer portal. We'll discuss that a little bit. LSU spring football back on the practice field today, back from spring break. I've got a thought on LSU as far as the linebackers go that I want to get into. Are the Saints really players for Shedeur Sanders? That's another topic we want to discuss. We're loaded, so let's get into it the same way we do each and every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Look, I think if you're following LSU baseball, most of you are, right now, your thought on the team probably in one way or another mirrors this thought. Offense, really good. Ace, really good. Stoppers in the back end of the bullpen, really good. But the depth of the pitching staff from your second starter through your middle relief is really where you need to see LSU step forward. And if that comes together, this team really could be primed to make a run. That's maybe not exactly how you feel, but it's close if you're paying attention. And so it would be easy to look at this weekend against Oklahoma and go, oh my gosh, LSU pitching did not allow an earned run the entire weekend. This is unbelievable. What a huge development. And I kind of push back on that a little bit. And let me explain. I think the biggest storyline from this weekend was the fact that LSU won all 3 games against what was a top 10 team on the road to get to 10-2 in league play. That is where the most meat is on this bone. Because you're now working yourself into a situation with the math where it looks really likely that you're going to be playing postseason baseball at Alec Box Stadium until you can get to Omaha. We'll get to that in a second. But that's what I think the biggest story is. To get to the pitching, it's great. It's fantastic that you did not allow an earned run over the weekend. That is a very, very positive thing. But you need context here. It was an atrocious weekend to try to hit in Norman. Temperatures were in the 40s. It felt like it was in the 30s. The wind was howling in. It was just a really, really difficult weekend to hit, and that obviously helps the pitchers. Now, we talked about Cade Anderson on Friday because that was a Thursday night game, and that was sensational. I mean, you strike out 14 guys. I don't care if it's 86 and sunny or 35 degrees. You strike out 14, that's just incredible work. And then you go to the rest of the staff who you saw on Friday and Saturday, and you saw Anthony Ianson, and you saw Chase Shores, and you saw Zach Cowan, and you saw Kason Evans. Well, truth be told, I already know those guys are good. I'm quite confident in Zach Cowan. I'm quite confident in Kason Evans. I'll give you some numbers to back those guys up in a second. And I thought Ianson was good, and I thought Shores was pretty good. I also thought it was a really, really positive day to pitch. both of those two guys in their starts walked 4 hitters. I'd love that number to come down a little bit. But I think when I look at their box scores, the fact that Ianson got 2 outs in the 6th inning and Shores completed 5 innings, when you can get that type of length from those guys, you're going to put LSU's bullpen in a position to succeed. Too many times Shores has not gotten out of the 4th. Ianson hadn't gotten out of the 3rd. Like you can't put that much on LSU's middle relief. But for Ianson to get 17 outs and Shores to get 15 outs, you get 32 outs from those two guys, your bullpen's going to be in a good spot. And because of that outing, Kason Evans was able to finish the game in a blowout on Friday. He threw 3 1/3, threw 57 pitches. And Zach Cowden was able to come in and throw the last 4 innings of the game. On Saturday, he threw 60 pitches. So that was good, but I kind of already know those guys are good. For LSU's pitching staff to truly take an appreciable step forward, that's going to come from some of the guys you'll probably see tomorrow. That's going to come from Connor Ware. That's going to come from William Schmidt. That's going to come from Maverick Rizzi. To an extent, Connor Benj has been good, but you're going to need to see more from DJ Primo. Like that's the core group that's going to have to take a step forward for me to really think that, man, you've really got something here. I know about these guys. I know Cade Anderson is an ace. I know Cowan is an assassin for the last 3 or 4 innings of a game. I know the same thing about Kason Evans. I feel like Anthony Ianson is a solid SEC number 2 who's capable of giving you 5 to 6 innings. He's going to run up some strikeouts. I like that. I think that Chase Shores has got a lot of talent. He's not going to be a 7-inning, 13 strikeout guy, but he can be a 5-inning, 2-run guy, and that's basically what you saw over the weekend. He only gave up 3 hits and didn't give up an earned run. Nobody in LSU staff did. The biggest statistic that I liked about LSU's pitching over the weekend, and I'm confident if you're listening to an Oklahoma podcast today, they're going to frame it from the Oklahoma perspective. I'm doing an LSU show to an LSU audience today, so I'll do it from an LSU perspective. But either way you slice it, Oklahoma had 26 at-bats with runners in scoring position over the weekend. 26 of them. They got 3 hits. 3 for 26 with runners in scoring position. Anderson faced 6 guys on Thursday in running scoring position. He struck out all 6. 3 for 26 is a 115 batting average. So whether you want to say that's Oklahoma coming up with poor at-bats, if you want to say that it was a really good day to pitch, so some of those numbers are watered down, if you want to say LSU rose to the occasion with guys on base and made the pitches they had to, any way you want to slice it, 3 for 26 with runners in scoring position is pretty good. And one of those 3 hits was on Saturday, and Derek Curiel was playing so shallow in left field that there was a line drive through the left side, and he was able to pick it up on 3 hops, and you had no chance to even send the runner home because he was playing so shallow because of the conditions. So they didn't even score a run on one of those hits that came with the runner in scoring position. So, look, I thought that LSU did a good job pitching. I think that the context of the weather conditions has to be mentioned. But, look, the biggest story here is a 3-game sweep on the road to get to 10-2. That is so big for this team. And you're talking about a team that is now chasing the 2013 team for these astronomical record numbers. Now, keep in mind, the 2013 team is going to get lost in the history books around here because they didn't win a championship. They didn't even win a game in Omaha. But the 2013 team had Aaron Nola at the top of the rotation. He was the National Pitcher of the Year. And you had Alex Bregman, and you had Mason Katz, and Ray Frines, and Jacoby Jones, and Ty Ross, and Christian Ibarra. But that team was great. They were great. They got to Omaha at 57-9. They started the season 33-3. They were 12-2 in league play. This team right now is 30-3. And if they can win against Nichols on Tuesday and then the first 2 games at Auburn, you would match both of those starts, 33-3 as well as 12-2. That is rarefied air to be that good. And right now you look at the rankings that came out, and LSU is number 3. They're behind Arkansas, who's 11-1 in the league. They're behind Texas, who beat them 2 out of 3 and is also 10-2 in the league. But you're in just phenomenal position right now if you're LSU. You've just got to keep your head above water the rest of the way. there are going to be some more setbacks. LSU, in my opinion, has not lost its last series. There are going to be days where the bullpen falters. Like, you're not going to go play 6 more great weekends. But when you get an opportunity to seize a weekend and to take control and to get a sweep like they did, and that they've done 3 times now, that's a big, big deal. And all this 56-game schedule is a resume builder to put yourself in position in the postseason. And last year, while we like to talk about them getting hot late and playing great baseball and how they figured it out, the fact of the matter is that you got off to such a crappy freaking start that you had to go to Chapel Hill and play probably the best non-SEC team in the country on their home field in the postseason. And you don't want to do that. I want somebody coming to the box. And while you can always bring up Stony Brook and you can always bring up Coastal and you can always bring up Houston, fact of the matter is that every single time LSU has advanced to Omaha in the super regional era, it has come via Baton Rouge. And you took a huge step this weekend towards making sure that that's the case this year. That is the biggest storyline. I want to talk about Luis Hernandez, who has just been sensational. I want to talk about some of the things that LSU did offensively in those adverse conditions, getting the leadoff doubles, getting some bunts down, making sure that you were able to get the ball into the outfield with runners in third and less than 2 outs, and then kind of the outburst that showed the power that LSU actually can use in some adverse conditions. Like, there are some other things I want to talk about, but the biggest story here, not the 0 earned runs. That's good. I love that.
Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bones Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Biggest story is getting a sweep on the road, especially considering you faced a top 20 pick on Thursday. We talked about that on Friday's show, but just a big freaking deal. Let me talk about Luis Hernandez briefly here before we go to break. I thought when they signed Luis Hernandez that they signed him for his bat. And then you go out in the fall, and he's catching a little bit. And you're going, okay, they're going to take a look at him at catcher. And then I saw Aaron Beatty struggling a little bit defensively, and I didn't feel like Eddie Yaman was going to be an option as a catcher. And you start to process this and go, I think Hernandez might be the catcher. And that immediately led me to say, I don't know if you're going to be able to count on as much offense as Indiana State got from him going to the SEC from the Missouri Valley Conference and then catching every day, which takes a lot out of you. We saw what happened with Paul Skeens when he took that catching gear off. The inverse happened to him. And I checked on this yesterday just to kind of see, and checked in with somebody in the program. And I said, when you got Luis Hernandez to come in from Indiana State, did you think that he was going to be able to be this primary catcher and be a force offensively? And what the indication was from the program was like, knew that the bat would very likely translate, not with the average, but there's going to be pop in that bat. He's going to run some balls out of the yard. And LSU thought he could be, at worst, the second catcher, and then at best work into being a starter and everyday catcher. And Josh Jordan has spent a ton of time with Luis Hernandez working on his catching, because it's not something Hernandez has really done for 2 years. And it has absolutely paid off. He's doing a good job defensively. There was a pass ball on Saturday, but other than that, thought he was pretty good. We talked about Oklahoma running as much as they do. They led the SEC in attempts and steals during the weekend. They didn't steal a base the whole weekend. And then offensively, look at what he's doing. 6 of his last 10 games have been multi-hit games. In the last 5 SEC games, he is 10 for 20. I can do that math. That's a 500 batting average with 3 doubles and 2 homers in those 5 games. In 12 SEC games total, he's hitting .340 against league competition with 4 home runs and only 8 strikeouts. There are 6 guys that have started all 12 SEC games. Only Stephen Milam has struck out fewer times in LSU's lineup than Luis Hernandez. He has just been incredible, and it's not like they're asking him to hit second or third. They got that licked up there with guys like Curiel and Jones and Dickinson. They plug him down there in the 5, 6, 7 hole. That's a powerful bat down in the lineup that you've got to deal with. And that's part of the length and the balance of LSU's order, which if you look at the numbers right now, it is frightening to look at what LSU can do offensively. And they weren't elite over the weekend in those bad conditions, but you did enough against Kyson Witherspoon to get 6 hits and chase him from the game after 6 innings. You really swung the bat well in Friday's game, scored 10 runs on 15 hits in that game. And then a really tough day. You got a gift on Sunday where they let a ground ball go under the second baseman's glove, but you made it stand up because it was a tough day to hit, and your pitching did a really, really good job. So big weekend for LSU. They're 3rd in the country. The RPI is now all the way up to 6 at this point. It's quickly corrected. If you looked at LSU entering SEC play, that RPI, because the schedule was so awful, was in the 60s. It's all the way up to 6 now. So the SEC just took it a month to correct the entire thing. And that's just, those are the breaks here. Like, you're in this league, your league games just mean everything. It's just, we can boil it down. And you can't throw up all over yourself all of February and March, and you can't just not show up on any Tuesday. But as long as you keep your head above water, and LSU did a lot more than that in the non-conference, you just got to take care of your business in league play. LSU in 4 weeks is taking care of the business to 10-2. You're now an RPI inside the top 10. So awesome stuff for LSU over the weekend. They sweep the Oklahoma Sooners 10-2 in league play. That's our Genesis opening drive. We will take a timeout. When we come back, I don't remember what we're going to talk about. I'll have to look it up. LSU basketball landing some transfers, including a Conference Player of the Year. How does that all fit together? It's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
The report as of a month ago was that LSU was going to pump some money into the basketball program, try to go after some transfers. That's paying off. They're getting some transfers. LSU basketball has added now 5 transfers into their program. We've talked about all of them but one, I believe, because we talked about Max McKinnon back on Friday. He joins Rashad King and De'Don Thomas. Let's see, who else have they added out of the portal class? I should have probably written that down, as opposed to just try to come up with it right off the top of my head. We got, and then Michael Nwoku from Mississippi State. And then over the weekend, they got a commitment from Marquel Sutton. Marquel Sutton is the reigning Summit League Player of the Year for the Omaha Mavericks. They were a tournament team, played St. John's in the first round of the tournament this year. Sutton is, one of these classic transfer portal stories. He started at a small community college in rural Oklahoma. Then he went to Omaha, and he's been a 3-year starter for the Mavericks, scored over 1,300 points in his time there. This past season, he averaged better than 18 points and 7 rebounds for Omaha. He's 6'9", and one of the things that I noticed immediately when I turn on the video of Marquel Sutton is that at 6'9", he can really run and jump. He's a very, very good athlete. Now, when I say 18.5 points per game, you generally would think of a really polished scorer, and I don't think that Marquel Sutton is a really polished scorer. He was about a 27% three-point shooter, and he took over 101 of them over the course of the season. That was down from like 26% as a third-year player. So he's not a great shooter. He's not a great, like, off the dribble, get his own shot, get a bucket guy. But he is 6'9". He can really run in transition. He's active around the rim. And I think 2 comps that come to mind for me are just in terms of the athleticism, kind of the length and the motor, the tenacity, is Ronald Dupree, who coincidentally joined the LSU program today as general manager, and more recently, Emmett Williams. Like, you wouldn't say Emmett Williams was some sort of elite talent, scoring, but he had long arms, he was incredibly active, and he would do a great job of catching lobs and scoring at 4 or 5 feet from the basket and getting offensive rebounds and putbacks and that kind of thing. And I think that's what Marquel Sutton's going to be on this team for LSU. He's not going to be the guy the offense runs through. He can play with his back to the basket a little bit, but I think what really suits him with this team as we move into 2025, 2026 is you've got guys in Deion Thomas and Rashad King and Max McKinnon and even Jalen Reed, who are shot creators, and they create a lot of space. And when you do that and those guys are attacking, you've got a 6'9", really athletic and agile Marquel Sutton who's able to cut to the rim, to get to the rim for lobs, to get there for offensive rebounds. Like, I think he's going to be kind of a junk player down there. And so if you look at LSU's front court, you've got Michael Nwoku as a 6'10", big body defensive presence. You've got Jalen Reed as a 6'10", big body, offensive-minded player. Then you've got Robert Miller, who's growing into that body and showed some real skill around the basket. But Marquel Sutton becomes the best athlete of that group and the most active, I think. I'm surprised looking at him on offense and seeing the size and how well he moves. His block numbers are nothing. He had 10 blocks 2 years ago and 10 blocks this past year. It seems like you would just luck into more blocks than that at that size. So I don't get the sense that he's an elite defender, but I like his fit on this team, being a guy that can clean some things up around the rim. One thing that you have to notice with Marquel Sutton, and this plays into that athleticism and that motor that he plays with, he shot 222 free throws this season. That was 24th in the nation. Cam Carter led LSU in free throw attempts this past year, and Cam Carter was not even in the same zip code as Marquel Sutton. And we all think that Cam Carter did a pretty good job of getting to the line. He shot 116 free throws. That's half of what Marquel Sutton shot. So that's how aggressive he is at getting and playing through contact and getting to the rim. And I think that generally translates. I remember Will Wade saying something when he signed Cam Thomas. He goes, guys that get fouled, get fouled. And that sounds like a cliche and really, but it's a skill and it's really important. And what Sutton did was he improved his free throw shooting, where he was a mid-60s% shooter 2 years ago. This past year, shot better than 72% from the free throw line. He's not dead-eye from the free throw line, but he made a big percentage of it. When you get there 220, that's 6 per game. You're getting to the bucket. And he had a stretch during league play where he really, really did a great job of scoring. He averaged 24 points per game over a 7-game stretch this year. His season high was 36 against South Dakota. He was 14 of 20 from the floor in that game. Over 7 games, he scored 20 more points in all of them. So look, the Summit League ain't the SEC. We know that. But we've talked about this a great deal. Like, a lot of these really good players, you're going to watch Walter Clayton play tonight. You know he came from Iona. And so you can get really good players from lesser programs. You just got to put them together and make them match. And as I look at this team, at least offensively, it makes a lot of sense. You've got length, you've got size, you've got skill, you've got a ball-dominant point guard who's had the ball in his hands for 2 years. I don't know a lot about the defensive ability of this team, but the offense looks like it's going to be pretty good. And you're not seeing as much of the lockdown defense taking over the top end of college basketball. Yes, Houston's great on defense. Yes, Florida's great on defense. Yes, Duke is great on defense. Auburn had a good defense this year. It's very important. But you're not seeing the pack line defenses, the Virginias of the world, get to the final anymore. Houston, it took them to get to this point to be a team that's second in the country in 3-point shooting. Like, they're great on defense. That's their identity, but they've got a really good offensive team this year. And I'm not talking about LSU getting to the Final Four and national championship. That's not what I'm trying to say. But we do have to talk about the top of the sport because you're playing in the SEC. And while I do believe it's reasonable to suggest the SEC will take a small step back next year, like I think A&M's not going to be good. I don't think Florida's going to win the national championship next year. Like I expect the league to fractionally back up a little bit. And LSU needs to take a big step forward. This team offensively looks pretty good to me on paper. And you bring in Marquell Sutton, the Summit League Player of the Year, and you hope that he can be a really nice offensive piece for you with the pieces you put around him. There's probably 2 more spots for LSU to go fill if they want to. I've heard some buzz about forward out of Iowa State. I don't think they're done. They've got significant investment in this team, and it looks pretty good on paper. You've got to get them to campus. You got to coach them and develop them, and you got to go execute on the floor in the best league in America. But there's no question in my mind that LSU today is a lot better for 2025, 2026 than they were for 2024, 2025. How much better? That's remains to be seen. And we probably won't know until January, quite frankly. But here we are. Marquell Sutton is pulled in. If you are curious for a in-depth look at some of these transfers, I've gone through every single one that LSU has added and written a portal profile on LouisianaSports.net. So if you got some time, you want to go check that out, it's all free right there at LouisianaSports.net. Our Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, check them out at Gulf Coast Office Products. Shout out to our guy, Trey Beal, who's just an awesome dude. They're fantastic to work with no matter what industry you are in. Gulf Coast Office Products has clients in your vertical market. They know your needs from a printing, scanning, copying perspective. Check them out online, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. We come back, let's talk some football. LSU linebackers. I need to take a big step forward. I'll tell you why next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. When you go to Genesis of Baton Rouge, you're going to feel like a guest, not a customer. I know a lot of you don't love the feeling of being at a car dealership. You feel like you're going to be swarmed. You feel like you're going to be pressured and upsold. And those stereotypes exist for a reason. That does happen some places. It's not going to happen at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They know how to treat their customers. They know how to treat their guests. And you're going to get the full scale of service from Genesis of Baton Rouge. They'll get you behind the wheel. They'll explain the incredible safety features. You'll feel the difference in a Genesis. It's a luxury vehicle. When I say Genesis, you should think luxury. When you think luxury, don't immediately go, I can't pay for that. You might be able to. It's a luxury vehicle at a reasonable price. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're at Airline and Pico. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bones Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
LSU spring football winding down this week. They were obviously off for spring break last week. They'll go through one more week of practices, and they'll wrap things up on Saturday with their open practice that'll involve an autograph session as well. So one more week of spring football before LSU breaks for summer workouts, and it will be till August when we can get back out there and give you some practice reports. But I wanted to spend some time on linebacker today because I think LSU's got a chance to be really good at linebacker. Obviously, Greg Penn was an emotional leader on that team. We talked to Greg most midweeks in player interviews. He's a great representative of the program, guy that absolutely loves LSU and played incredibly hard. I don't know that he's going to be a first-round draft pick coming up, but that's a guy that was obviously a big leader on the team and earned the number 18. Do I think that LSU can raise its level of talent this year at wide receiver from what they put out there last year, especially after Perkins went down? I do. You consider a linebacking core that's got Whit Weeks, that's got Devon Keys in his second year, and we saw some flashes from him late in the season last year, playing a little bit at the star, playing a little bit inside. And then you've got Harold Perkins kind of moving to the star in a linebacker-type role. That is, I believe, a really, really strong core to work with. You've got West Weeks, who's a veteran player that you bring into the fold as well. They're really high on a couple of their young linebackers in this class. But I think to talk about the foundation in the top three is the most important thing. And Whit Weeks emerged as a star last year. You're talking about a guy that finished second in the Southeastern Conference in tackles. I think there are some things to clean up. I lean a little bit more on Pro Football Focus to talk about that than me. You saw a very obvious misplay that he made in the South Carolina game that allowed Rocket Sanders to spring for a huge touchdown. It's just some of those gap assignments that you're looking for. But in terms of effort, intensity, and then production, Whit Weeks is going to be a preseason first-team All-SEC linebacker. I think Devon Keys is a talent upgrade for LSU in his second year. I think that's a guy who is primed to make a lot of plays from his inside linebacker spot. And then I think Harold Perkins being around the line of scrimmage but not being boxed into the middle, I think that allows him to use his greatest strength, which is his athleticism, quickness, and most importantly, I think, his instincts. I think at times in the middle of the field, Perkins got a little bit caught in the wash, and that showed up on tape, but really in production. I mean, you just didn't see him getting north and south and making plays behind the line of scrimmage. He needs to be making plays behind the line of scrimmage. He can really move laterally, sideline to sideline, no question. His most impactful plays are going to be moving north and south, moving vertically. And you allow him, I think, to do that when you put him in a little more space. He's going to do some covering. He's going to play some in the nickel in the slot. He'll have some assignments against some slot receivers. Not all the time, but some. But for the purposes of this discussion with the linebackers, you imagine he's going to be a really, really productive and guy that wrecks a lot of plays if used properly. So there are question marks at a lot of places on the field for LSU. Both lines of scrimmage, I have some question marks. Safety, I have some question marks. Corner, I have some question marks. I look at linebacker, and when I consider like West Weeks, the fourth linebacker, like I don't really have any questions. I think you're going to have Whit Weeks, who I can right now go ahead and pencil in for 112 tackles. Absolutely. I've got Harold Perkins, who I think is going to make 8 to 10 tackles for loss, have 6-7 sacks. And then I think Devon Keys, given the reign of 12 games to play, is going to be an 85 tackle guy in this defense. And I think is going to be a little bit more dynamic than what you saw last year. Now, one of the things that has to happen for the linebackers to have the kind of year that I'm forecasting is you've got to be good at the point of attack. And I don't have any doubt about Jack Pyburn, about Jamari Butler, about Patrick Payton, about Gabe Relaford. Like, on the edge, you're going to be strong. And I feel pretty good about Jacoby and Guillory at least being strong at the point of attack. I don't know how statistically productive Guillory's going to be, but for the point of this conversation, I'm talking about the linebackers. And he's going to be a big-time piece to holding the point of attack between the center and the guards. And then we'll see what Ahmad Rowe and Dom McKinley and some of those guys are this year. If they all hold up their end of the bargain and allow those linebackers to run, I think LSU is going to be better against the run, more dynamic in making plays in the backfield, and I think going to cause some havoc. Blake Baker's defenses, generally speaking, cause a lot of havoc. And one of the things we know that Kyle Williams has done very early in his time at LSU, and it's very early in his time at LSU, he doesn't like the notion that defensive linemen's job is to kind of hold their ground and let everybody else make plays. He wants those guys to make plays. But I think the guys behind them are going to make more. And so I'm very, very much bullish on this group's ability to come into its own, to be a veteran, productive, and then maybe more so than last year, dynamic group. Making plays behind the line of scrimmage, blowing up plays in the backfield, ending drives because you're creating negative plays and getting teams behind the sticks. I'm really confident that LSU has got this thing figured out from a linebacker perspective. And I think when you go back like 2 years ago and at some points last year, just not good enough at the linebacker spot in terms of filling gaps and stopping the run and making plays. I think they're going to be every bit of that this year on the linebacking core. So I'm very bullish on that group. I don't know if you're going to see much of anything on Saturday. Harold Perkins is not going through spring workouts. Whit Weeks is not going through spring workouts. Like, those guys are coming back from injury. I have every reason to believe that they'll do so very, very healthily. You got Whit just had a broken bone, which is no fun, but it does just heal. Perkins, of course, had to have the ACL reconstructed, but that's a surgery that you feel pretty good about, and you hope that he's able to go out there and play at full speed very, very quickly. And Brian Kelly said back in the middle of spring football a couple weeks ago, both of those guys should be ready to go on July 1st, which gives them 4 weeks to get up to speed to be ready to go full speed, full contact at camp. So that's a very, very positive thing for LSU, and I think the linebackers are going to be a huge positive for the Tigers moving into this offseason and into the season in 2025. All right, fired up to be here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. We've got a lot to do in hour number 2. Matthew Bruni is going to be with us in 20 minutes talking about LSU's new basketball transfers. I want to talk a little bit about the national final tonight. And are the Saints really and truly a threat to land Shedeur Sanders at number 9? And is that a good idea? I've got my thoughts on that in hour number 2. One of the big topics of the weekend, as far as LSU goes, was Cade Anderson's pitch count on Thursday. He threw 135 pitches. I told you on Thursday, I don't think it was some sort of egregious, fireable offense. Please do not misunderstand me. I just said on Friday that was a little bit much for me for Cade Anderson. Coincidentally, this was set up before Thursday. We've now got an opportunity to speak to somebody who actually does this for a living. Dr. Christina Graffia is an upper extremities doctor with Ochsner. We've got our segment coming up with the folks over at Ochsner here to end hour number 1. So we'll ask her what she thinks is the leading cause of youth arm injuries and what the best way to go about preventing those is. And we'll talk about that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Closing up hour number 1 here, Monday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Every other week, we end the first hour with our sports health presented by Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. We've been speaking with Dr. Jeremy Burnham the last few weeks. He's got a pinch hitter today. It's Dr. Christina Graffia. She's a hand, wrist, and elbow orthopedic surgeon there with Ochsner, and good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Monday. Dr. Graffia, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. I want to talk a little bit about elbow issues. Obviously, that's a hot button topic this time of year in professional baseball, in amateur baseball, down to youth sports as well. And I know that y'all see a lot of that over at Ochsner. At what age do you start seeing some of these elbow issues that tend to plague baseball players, pitchers specifically?
Hey, it's Amy Brown from the Bobby Bone Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
So honestly, as soon as kids start pitching is when I start seeing elbow issues. So when they're younger, their growth plates are open. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it tends to be more stress fractures of the growth plate. But then as kids get older and their growth plates close, that's when you start seeing ligament issues like the dreaded ulnar collateral ligament injury.
And that's the one that triggers the Tommy John. That's the buzzword in baseball. We talked about this a little bit as we were preparing to get you on the show today. And I'm a big baseball fan, and I find that fans look at a pitcher and say, okay, Tommy John surgery, obviously you're going to miss the rest of this season, but by next year, you'll be ready to roll 100%. The confidence level from fans, I'm not talking doctors and coaches who have a lot more information, but fans are just like, back good as new in 15 months or so. Can you speak to just how effective this surgery is, but what the recovery rate is like as far as getting back to where you were pre-injury?
Yeah, so this procedure is becoming very commonly done. I think if you look at the Major League Baseball pitchers, about 35% of them have had this procedure done. So very common. But you have to keep in mind that the success rate's about 85 to 90%, which sounds fantastic. But, if you're the 1 in 7 people that isn't able to get back to sport, that sucks to be you,
Yeah.
So you just have to keep in mind that, sure, 85, 90% sounds great, but there are some people that aren't able to get back to where they were before. And the recovery process is long. We're talking 12 to 16 months to get back. So that means you're missing 1 season, sometimes 2 seasons, just depending on the timing of when the surgery is done.
What do y'all find to be most often the cause of that UCL injury?
So what happens when you pitch is you exert a lot of stretching force on the inside of your elbow. And so that ulnar collateral ligament is what's getting stretched every single time that the ball is being thrown. And so if you overuse your elbow, if you're pitching too much, then over time that ligament's going to get more and more and more stretched out. It doesn't necessarily tear off the bone. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times more likely what happens is it stretches out so much that it's not really even providing any function at that point. And so that's when the ligament gets reconstructed.
Do you find that it's more often that you're pitching on days that are too close together or too much at one time or kind of both?
It's a little bit of everything. I think the important thing is just not pitching in consecutive days. Don't play year-round. And then to kind of rotate in other positions besides pitcher to give yourself a break. And if you look on the Little League Baseball website, they have rest periods that they kind of recommend for every age based off of how many pitches that you're throwing. So there's some really good resources to look up to figure out how to make sure you don't reach the point where you need to have this surgery.
Dr. Christina Graffia is our guest here. It's our segment every other week with the folks over at Ochsner. You sent me a great little piece on baseball injuries and prevention from the Andrews Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Those resources, I'm guessing, are available that y'all have over there at Ochsner for parents of youth athletes and coaches as far as preventative measures for these issues. I'm guessing that's something that y'all do a good bit of talking about with people.
We do a good bit of talking about that, and we're actually partners with the Andrews Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. So this is one of our resources as well, in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic stuff. I know there are a lot of parents whose kids are just getting into youth sports, and that's information you may have not needed until now. But obviously, at this point, it's becoming so prevalent with kids playing year round, and the strain that sometimes are on youth athletes and their bodies. So we appreciate your time here on this Monday, Dr. Graffia. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
That's Dr. Christina Graffia. She is a hand and wrist and elbow orthopedic surgery expert over at Ochsner. Look, at Ochsner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute, we know that sports injuries can be unpredictable. One situation you can protect yourself from is muscle cramping. One of the first things you can do to aid in recovery to avoid muscle cramping is to stretch prior to and at the end of your activity. Not drinking enough fluids can also lead to muscle cramps, and so be sure to stay hydrated. To learn more about sports injury prevention and treatment, visit Ochsner.com. Ochsner.org/BRortho. Look, I don't want that segment to sound like we saw Kate Anderson throw 135 pitches and then boom, we're talking to the Ochsner people because that's some sort of crime. This was set up previous to that. It just, I think, happened to come at a good time. I made my point on the Kate Anderson issue on Friday's show for those that missed it. Like, I don't think it was egregious. I don't think it was reckless. I don't think it was crazy. In my opinion, it was just a little bit much. And I don't know nearly as much as Dr. Graffia. I don't know nearly as much as Jay Yeski or Jay Johnson. I don't know nearly as much as Kate Anderson or his parents, obviously, because they went through Tommy John 2 years ago. This is just one guy's opinion watching it. I just saw that number creep up. And to me, it was a little bit higher than I would personally like. My cutoff point there would probably been right around 115. But hey, look, he looked great. He was throwing it great. They weren't getting on base. The innings were quick and efficient. He wasn't throwing 40 pitches at a time at the end of that outing. I was just looking at it from the perspective of, hey, it's 45 degrees. It's April. He's coming off Tommy John. This is the most workload he's had in a season. And to me, I probably would have gone to the bullpen, but they didn't. And you had your bullpen ready to go on Friday and Saturday, and that's all you needed, and you swept the series. And we'll see how Kate Anderson responds this coming week. He's got an extra day of rest, which is a very good thing. Incidentally, Kate Anderson was named the SEC Pitcher of the Week this week. I don't think that discussion lasted very long. I do realize that Liam Doyle was part of a no-hitter on Friday. He threw 6 shutout innings against Texas A&M, but a 9-inning complete game shutout on the road there was pretty impressive, and it's against the top 10 team. A&M at that point was like 1-10 in the league. So awesome stuff from Kate Anderson back on Thursday. And again, we appreciate the good folks at Ochsner for giving us some of their time every other Monday. So thanks to Dr. Christina Graffia for a little bit of her time. All right, that's it for hour number 1 here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Lots that we got to here in the first hour. We spent the first segment talking about LSU's baseball sweep over Oklahoma. In the second segment, started diving into LSU's transfer portal basketball class. We'll talk a little bit more about that in hour number 2. We also had a chance to talk a little bit about LSU's linebacking core in the third segment. You can find that on YouTube at Hunt on LSU. That's where all of our LSU football content is all year long. So if you just want football, you can find it there. And wherever you find your podcast, Hunt on LSU. You can catch any of that wherever you find your sound, whether that's 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. We certainly do appreciate that. We've got a ton to get to in hour number 2. I want to talk about the national final tonight. Obviously, the Saints, are they a reasonable landing spot for Shedeur Sanders, or is this a little bit of a smokescreen from the folks at New Orleans? I have my thoughts on that. We'll dive into that in hour number 2. When we come back after Sports Center, we'll chat with Matthew Bruni, part of the On3 team with the Bengal Tiger. Matthew's been all over LSU basketball, both men's and women's, and LSU's men have gone crazy in the transfer portal over the last 10 days. So we'll talk to Matthew about how the 2025-2026 Tigers look. So come back with us on the other side of Sports Center. It's a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bones Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.